Bugonia is the latest in Greek director Yorgos Lanthimos' prolific 2020s run, where, for the fourth feature in a row, he has reteamed with star Emma Stone and DP Robbie Ryan, and for the third time with composer Jeskin Fendrix. It's a remake of the 2003 South Korean film Save the Green Planet, and follows two conspiracy theorist cousins who abduct a CEO of a major pharmaceutical conglomerate, convinced that she is an alien. I do think that it is necessary for me to just say and get this out of the way fast. I love Save the Green Planet. It has the kineticism, the brutality, the emotional quality of some of the best South Korean films from the 2000s. There's just one small issue with it. That I'll get to later. So when I had heard that Yorgos Lanthimos would helm the English language remake, I was poised to believe that the film, if it could just mend that issue, would be a masterpiece. I'll start with what really works. The primary performances are top-notch. Jesse Plemons is frighteningly uncomfortable, a man clearly easily manipulated and swayed by conspiracies online. The intensity of the drive to prove that aliens exist and control the Earth which he brings to Teddy makes it genuinely difficult to take one's eyes off of him.
That was really good. My pulse is racing right now.
Plemons is perfect casting for this role, emotionally complex and terrifying with just how seriously he takes the character's convictions. An emotional array of devastating loss to self-righteous anger is presented with the metaphorical bow of darkly satiric comedy, which was firmly established in his last collaboration with Lanthimos, Kinds of Kindness. It is no surprise that Emma Stone is as good as she is at playing the, on first glance, cold female corporate executive, Michelle Fuller. More than simply being maybe one of the best contemporary actors, Stone excels in the wonderfully absurd fables woven by Lanthimos, forming a creative partnership reflective of Martin Scorsese with Robert De Niro, or Wes Anderson with his ever-expanding troupe of actors. Stone is fully committed to the role, balancing the fine line between sympathetic — their character goes through a lot at the hands of the conspiracy theorist cousins — and still somewhat unlikable, as the audience is positioned to follow Teddy's delusions of grandeur from his point of view. As expected as it was to have a phenomenal performance from Emma Stone, the same can be said for Jeskin Fendrix's score. It is widely cited that Fendrix had composed the score before even reading a script, and it shows in the final work. Like his scores for Poor Things and Kinds of Kindness, the sound is unconventional. Yet, with this score, there's a grandness which can be attributed to the 90-piece orchestra, a first with his film scores, and this score is perfect. Rather than providing a score which is directly complementary to the surface level of the film's story, instead, Fendrix created something operatic in scope, yet still abrasive to the ears, in order to highlight the interiority of Teddy's mission. To him, as revealed through the score, which flavours the audience perception, he isn't someone who tortures people in his basement. In his worldview, he is saving the world from external threat, and that requires a sound which is large, which is momentous, even when scenes appear to simply be a dialogue between three characters. Cinematographer Robbie Ryan has never shot a bad-looking film, in my opinion, and Bugonia continues that trend. Shot in a VistaVision format with aspect ratio 150:1, the size of the frame itself constricts the audience perception of the narrative into a box, forcing the eye to focus exclusively on what is centralized without wandering towards what could be occurring just out of focus on the edge of the frame. There is a control to what has been shot that the audience is unable to detach, narratively. They have been put onto the ride and the seatbelts have been buckled. Firm. You cannot pull your eyes away because of the aspect ratio. The use of light and shadows, especially within Teddy's basement, which is where much of the film takes place in, gives a texture to the film, much like in the film noirs of old, where shifting conceptions of morality are presented through the lighting. It alienates the environments that we are likely to be familiar with, blurring the lines between delusion and fact. To be slightly expected, after 3 consecutive years with new releases, Lanthimos' style has begun to suffer. That sounds too harsh and hyperbolic in a manner I did not intend. To clarify, what I meant to say is that this feels almost like autopilot, taking some of what really worked in his prior 2020s releases and putting them to a story which already existed in the medium. A convention of Lanthimos cinema has been that his films feel original in narrative content, maximalist in presentation, and, when it comes to characters, contain fleshy puppets who come to terms with what it means to be fully human. Bugonia only really ticks one of those boxes, the maximalist presentation, but even that seems watered down compared to his previous films this decade. This does feel really negative, especially for a filmmaker who has meant a lot to me these past few years, so it brought me no pleasure to say so. The biggest flaw with Bugonia is how it ends. Not the final 2 minutes, that montage is beautifully composed with an interesting needle drop playing, but how faithful to the original the ending is. Although it makes changes to the rest of the story, replacing the subplot featuring 2 detectives, with the brief appearance of one sheriff with ties to Teddy, changing the lead conspiracist's companion from his wife to his cousin, and the shift of the central CEO role from man to woman, Bugonia does not change its ending from the original. I, for one, dislike the ending of Save the Green Planet. That is the only problem I have with it, as I teased earlier in this review. So, much to my dismay, when I had seen that the ending was almost entirely the same, I was let down and disappointed by the final outcome. It abandons the themes of truth and conspiracy which the film is built around, leaving an ultimately flat experience with its final moments. Hence, I still think that Bugonia is quite strong as an individual work, with many highly functional parts operating at the top of their ability, but the story doesn't reach the satisfying conclusion that I had wished for from a remake of an otherwise perfect film. I still enjoyed it and would mostly recommend it, but Bugonia is yet another remake which is, sadly, burdened with the shadow of a superior original. I more strongly recommend Save the Green Planet, if you can find it. Bugonia, 3.5 stars. Well, that's all. Keep on watching movies and form your own opinions. See you in the next one.